Happy New Year, ladies and gentle people. I hope you're enjoying the new year, the day, the night, or whatever it be. And I hope you're especially enjoying the horror. Oh, the lovely horror. If you haven't figured out what this is yet, then you pretty much have probably been out of the gaming world for a while. This is the obligatory Five Nights at Freddy's topic. This is actually something I've wanted to get done and out of the way for a long time now, because I've been following the game ever since it was pretty much shown to me by Gabriel, and ever since I've been researching about the game, I've been getting to understand how it works, and gotta tell you, it's a really lovely franchise for what it be. So the reason why I'm talking about Five Nights at Freddy's today is pretty much because Scott Cawthon, the game's creator, decided to announce Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is officially under development. And this is actually something I'm actually kind of glad about, because I enjoy 1 and I enjoy 2. And that really scary photo of Golden Freddy, or Fredbear, as his original name is, presumably, just got me kind of amped. And I'm glad that he is doing it at this point in time, because, you know, we were originally supposed to have Five Nights at Freddy's 2 sometime this year, but I guess things came around and made everything difficult, so he had to bump that up to November, and now we've got this game being worked on. Wishfully, this one has a bit more time put into it, because the fact that 2 had to be rushed due to complications was a bit problematic for me. I didn't like that, but it's tolerable to admit the least. And I still appreciate how it came out. Not as scary, but it's still enjoyable for what it be. However, this has nothing to do with simply just 1 or 2, or even Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This has something to do with the entire Five Nights at Freddy's franchise in full, as I will be talking about 1 and 2 in full, and I'll be talking about what I hope will be coming in 3, and basically what might be on the horizon afterward. So for those of you who have been kind of left in the dark about the franchise, let me talk to you about the plot, I guess. So, the name of this place is Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The original location was Fredbear's Diner, if my memory serves correctly. And there, it's pretty much just like, I don't know, ghetto Chuck E. Cheese's, as most people have put out. However, Fredbear and even Freddy Fazbear I have made plentiful jokes about because of the way that they look. They look pretty much like, you kind of guessed it, Fozzie the Bear from the Muppet Show, and I presume that's probably where the design concept came from. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. So, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was originally a very popular place where kids would go to have birthday parties, and the adults would entertain them. And in the first game, you were introduced to 4 animatronics. You have Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie the Bunny, Chica the Chicken, and Foxy the Pirate Fox. These 4 would basically come out, they'd sing songs. Foxy would probably, I don't know, maybe come out and surprise the kids. Probably have, I don't know, maybe an instrument or something. Maybe give a lecture. I've got no clue. However, there was an issue at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and this is pretty much described more in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The Bite of 1987, or the Bite of 87, is simply put by the phone guy, vocalized by Scott Cawthon. And basically, it's put out that one of the animatronics had, I guess, maybe bitten, I forget what kind of lobe it is. I think it's the frontal lobe of the body. Ugh, it's very scary. That's very deadly, too. But it was probably triggered maybe by Freddy, maybe by Foxy, probably by the alternate version of Foxy, which they pretty much use as like puzzle pieces now, Mangle. It's currently unclear as to how that happened or which animatronic did it. Either way, ever since, the place has had a bad rap, and In some cases, some places have had to shut down. However, there were a few other locations. And those locations are where you have your security guards. Okay, so your first night guard is Michael Schmidt. And the way that he works is, well, we don't really know about his character in full. Because if he really wanted to do minimum wage, which is $120.50, actually that's below minimum wage, actually, in 1993, then I'm actually kind of curious, why would he come back to a place knowing he could get murdered doing security for minimum wage? He probably could have, I'm going to take Markiplier's words on this, he could have probably gotten a job, I don't know, doing dishes or something. It just feels a bit out of place. Your other night guard is Jeremy Fitzgerald, and he's in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. He basically worked at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza at a different location back in 1987. And I presume that his schedule had happened right before the Bite of 87 had occurred. In fact, I think the Bite of 87 happened during the week that he was there. So, looking at things, things really don't seem very high and bright for our protagonist, don't they? Oh, very, very scary stuff, I will not lie. Then you've got the phone guy, vocalized by Scott Cawthon himself. Okay, now the phone guy is basically your main tutorial guide. He'll teach you about the ways of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. He'll teach you how to pretty much use strategies to avoid getting caught by the animatronics and to prevent He'll teach you how to prevent getting murdered. He is a very scary character, however, and a lot of speculation has been put upon his presence, I guess, if that makes the way that he works. Obviously, he knows the place like the back of his hand, but some people have assumed like he is, I don't know, maybe the purple guy found in the death minigames of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. They assumed that he was probably the one that used Golden Freddy in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 to cause all the animatronics to go haywire in Night 6. And unfortunately, he ends up getting murdered at the end of Night 4 in the first game. So we really don't know where he's going. We don't really know what's really going on here. But he's probably the reason why the whole place has had troubles, at least since the beginning of it. Who knows? Wishfully, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 does explain more about his character, because I actually do enjoy Phone Guy. Phone Guy is rather interesting if you get to listen to him enough, and if you get to interpret his words more than enough. But we'll see what Scott does with him. We'll really see. And if he isn't in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, I would be very disappointed. I always loved that. I always loved being able to pick up the phone and just hear his lovely voice. Hello? Hello? Well, if you're hearing this, chances are you made a pretty poor career choice. I know, I'm not a good Scott Cawthon imitator. I don't expect to be. If I ever was, however, I probably would make a comedy sketch about it, but not now. Anywho, back to the fourth character. There's actually one more character that we need to bring up here, and that's Fritz Smith. Fritz Smith, we don't know anything about him. And he's basically the guy that you play as during Night 7 of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, because Jeremy Fitzgerald ends up taking the day shift, because there's apparently a birthday planned. He's basically said by a phone guy to stay close to the animatronics, so that was basically his job while Fritz was taking over for Night 7. However, Fritz is fired on the first day. And we'll get to that when we talk about Night 7 in both games, but as for anything else, I guess it's time to talk about the gameplay. So Five Nights at Freddy's is basically your basic point-and-click game. You basically go from one area to another, clicking on different buttons, looking through the camera to make sure that none of the animatronics or any of the other robots have moved. And this This, oddly enough, reminds me of two games from my childhood, Night Trap and Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures, which Night Trap, your basic motive was, or motive? Is that really even a thing, your basic motive? Your basic requirement, was to basically go from room to room looking through the cameras, and if you saw any kind of burglars or any kind of villains, you basically, push down on the button and boom, there's a trap there, and the enemies would go right through it. In Pac-Man 2, you basically had to use the directional pad, assuming you're playing on a Genesis or a Super Famicom, and you would basically just hit down on the B button in order to activate certain things using a slingshot, with the cursor being where you're aiming. And that's, combining the two ideas made the game a bit more bearable when it came to Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2. Although, unfortunately, response time is rather a mandatory requirement. You have to be very quick on your hands here. And I don't mean quick on your thumbs either. Quick on your fingers. Because who clicks the mouse with their thumb? I've never seen anybody click the mouse with their thumb before. I've never seen anybody do that. Even with wireless mice, I've never seen that before. It's weird. It is very weird. Either way. The game plays at a native 60 frames a second, and it is very enjoyable for it to be. Unfortunately, though, I've only viewed videos of it in 30 frames a second, so I'm actually kind of curious as to how 60 FPS mode works. But each game has their own forms of gameplay mechanics. Each game actually runs a bit differently than the other. So let me explain how each one works. So in the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza 1993 rendition that you find in the original Five Nights at Freddy's, the monitor has a few ways of working. It's kind of scary too, because sometimes you get to see these odd hallucinations of the way the animatronics look. Sometimes they like to stare right in your face. So one of the advantages, obviously, when the camera's up, the animatronics will not move as often. The major exception to this is probably maybe Foxy, because if you stare at him for too long, he'll probably dash right to you if you're playing regularly, or if you just have the camera stuck on him for whatever reason that be. But either way, the advantages that you have with the monitor in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 is that you're able to check any room. The animatronics won't move as often or as quickly as they would if they weren't being monitored by you. Unfortunately, in some cases, if you look in the wrong room, you'll end up getting a photo of Golden Freddy, and if you put it down, you'll end up getting Golden Freddy in the room. You have to quickly put it back up to make sure that you don't get caught. Now, other things, like the doors and the hall lights, you unfortunately cannot deal with closing the doors and the hall lights while you have the monitor up. So while the monitor's up, you pretty much have no kind of leeway of defense unless the doors are already up. And if Freddy's in the room, then, oh, you're out of luck. Very out of luck, unfortunately. It's a scary sight. Scary feeling, I admit. Oh, jeez. Exclusive to Five Nights at Freddy's 1, you have a power meter. And your power meter will have a usage bar, depending on how much you're actually using at the time. Whether or not, like, you're using lights, have the doors closed, or if you're using the monitor at the same time. And you've got to be really careful about energy consumption. It is actually kind of hard to survive the night depending on how you're playing. Because if you're playing Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and you don't know how to keep your power consumption at a low, then you probably won't be able to survive the night as easily as, say, I don't know, people that have completed 2020 mode in Night 7. But again, we'll get to Night 7 when we get to Night 7. So, the power runs out regularly, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're not using any of the doors, the lights, or the monitor, the power will still run out on a regular speed. And unfortunately, due to that, there's no way to actually have unlimited power unless if you're using Five Nights at Freddy's Mobile under the cheap mode, which I think you could purchase for $4.99 if my memory serves correctly. The strategies that I like to prefer to use are, like, especially if you're playing, like, any of the later nights, especially nights 4 to 7 in the first game, make sure you at least have 50%, or at least 55% by the time you get to 3 a.m. If you're able to survive for that long, you'll be completely okay. If the power does run out, Freddy will end up coming his way to you, and if you are violently unlucky, then chances are you probably might not survive unless if your timing is okay, and unless if, again, it's entirely luck-based as to how Freddy will appear on screen and give you the jump scare, because unless if you're looking at him, you probably might not get caught, but if you're looking away, it could vary. However, there is one sound effect that I commonly enjoy using, especially when it comes to power outages, and I'm actually kind of glad that Scott decided to use this one too. It's a generic public domain sound, but it works for what it's worth. An 18-second audio clip involving the place shutting down. Oddly enough, though, the fan still works for a select amount of time. Now, I'll tell you what, if I ever did security, and trust me, I never will, but if I ever had to do security, and the power ran out on me like that, I would be scared fishless. And all of you who know that I use censored swearing know what fishless... Nah, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't be scared fishless. I've dealt with worse. Sometimes I've actually had to sit in the dark. Heck, I've had power outages here in the house before, and I was completely okay, although, it can kind of frighten you if you have to endure that at least almost every year. I've only had to experience it maybe 3 or 4 times in my current home base, so it's nothing I'm not used to. There is, however, a 1% drain that happens in the office, and that is because of all the energy that is currently running in the building at the time, and that's at the very beginning. That's why sometimes it might say that you start off with 99% rather than 100. Other than that, though, there really isn't much of anything else to talk about when it comes to power consumption. That's it. That's really it. However, there are a few interesting things that can happen. Like, for example, and Markiplier showed this off in his 2020-2020 fail compilation. Apparently, when Foxy's running to the door, if the power runs out right before he comes in, his jump scare will actually be cut off. But we'll get to Foxy when we get to Foxy. And if there is anything else going on, oddly enough, and this is actually kind of rare, if for whatever reason you get Golden Freddy when the power runs out, I guess he can still give you a kill screen. It's rather scary if that actually ends up happening. I've never had it happen myself, but it's something worth checking into if you end up ever seeing it. This is actually switched in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 with the flashlight, and the flashlight actually does have its own battery power too. However, it doesn't wear out as often as everything else. You basically use that in the cameras to check everything that's going on. You also use that to check the front hall to assure that the animatronics do walk away after a while. It is mandatory if you're trying to, get classic Freddy or Foxy out of the way, especially Mangle. Ugh, I never liked Mangle. But enough about this power mechanic. On to the next item up for bids. And that is the clock. So, I'm actually kind of not sure as to how each clock in each game works. In Five Nights at Freddy's, the way it works is that, presumably, each hour is about 86 seconds, which will make each night last 8 minutes and 36 seconds long. Whereas in the mobile version, because I guess due to data restraints, every minute is about 45 seconds, which means that the mobile version is actually kind of easier in this regard, making each night 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So you might wonder, what is the security guard probably doing for full hour? Like, imagine if Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2 were for full hours. Now that would be some scary number. But I will tell you right now, if every hour were 86 seconds, that kind of reminds me of the Grand Theft Auto franchise, because every hour in that game was a minute. And, I have some bad memories with the way that the time worked in that. In fact, I actually had to use the speed-up time cheat in order to make some missions actually go faster, which, oddly enough, actually kind of works. It actually allows certain missions to become available quicker, too, which is, it's worthwhile. I'm sure that some people who have played Majora's Mask like I have used the reverse Song of Time and probably the Song of Double Time just to do that. But, I don't know, sped up hours in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2 PC. And keep in mind, 86 seconds applies to both versions of the game, regardless of which version you're playing. I don't know. I would have enjoyed a prolonged game involving 6 hours a day, six not in-game hours, real-time hours per in-game time, but I don't know how to put it. But if we really wanted to play from 12 to 6, then we would do it that way. But, given that Scott wanted to make this more of an arcade-like game, because the game used to have a live system in the beta versions, then, I am actually very accepting of the almost 1.5 minutes of gameplay per hour that you have to do. But for an 8 minute and 36 second stage, regardless of which game you're playing, it can be very disturbing indeed, especially if the tension gets high, especially if the power runs out in the first game, or if you run out of flashlight in the second game. However, it's much more tolerable if you decide to play, I don't know, maybe one of the glitch levels, Night 8, perhaps? Oh, Night 8. Oh, we'll get to Night 8. Right after Night 7, actually. But, before we do that, we need to still talk about more game mechanics, don't we? Okay, the doors. The doors also have a very generic public domain sound effect, and again, I don't mind them. However, these doors cause your battery consumption to be violently horrible. I don't enjoy these one bit. The doors, however, are actually a major defense tactic, because you do need them in order to avoid being caught by either any of the 5 main animatronics. Not including Golden Freddy. My apologies. And if you're using the 420 method, or the 20-20-20-20 method for Night 7, one of the main things that you have to do is you actually have to close the right door to prevent Freddy from coming in the room. Eventually, if you do it enough times, you'll probably get back on the stage, but it's very variable as to how it works. But oddly enough, if you play your cards right, and this even happens in version 1, revision 13, if you somehow close the door while Foxy's delivering his jump scare, what ends up happening is that the doors will be hard locked, aka you can't open them or close them. And if Foxy has already done his jump scare, then the power will actually act as if it is in regular 1-bar mode, which means you could actually glitch your way to survive one full night. It's kind of scary for what it's worth, but it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable having that tension, and if you end up having that happen, more power to you. Much more power to you. Now, there really isn't any significance as to what I could say about the doors. I mean, they don't come back in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and I'm sure that a lot of people were very scared about that. Ooh. But the fact that we have, like, these are military-style doors. This is like DEF CON stuff that you would see in, like, war games. I'm actually kind of surprised that, I don't know, a children's place would have these doors. Why? I mean, okay, I could understand Half-Life and Gary's Mod having that, but in actual life, I don't think these doors would be used. I think we would probably have, I don't know, maybe police station-like metal doors that they use for the interrogation room, probably to isolate sound. There might be a little glass window there, but who knows? Who knows? It's interesting. But one of the things that if Bonnie or Chica ending up on either side, like Bonnie will be on the left door and Chica will be on the right door. If you leave them there for long enough, you cannot close the door. So which can actually leave Freddy in. And if you have Bonnie on the left hand side and you can't close the door, that'll lead Foxy into the room. However, as I've mentioned before, if you're lucky enough to get the Foxy door glitch or whatever it's supposed to be, then chances are you probably will survive the night, as mentioned earlier. Other than that, there really is nothing more to say about the doors. Let's go on to, what is it next? The hall lights. Ah, yes, the hall lights. The hall lights are right next to the door. You basically just, press it, and if you catch somebody in the act, you could just knock the door down. Unfortunately, you cannot do that with Foxy, and you cannot do that with Freddy. You have to be able to pay attention to the atmospheric audio. And if you're not able to do so, well, Freddy will end up in the room catching you, or Foxy will just run down to West Hall and catch you right in the act. Other than that, the hall lights really don't have any kind of major significance. They're just there for the sake of giving you a little more leeway, but they do consume enough. It can be problematic too. In the fan game rendition of Five Nights at Freddy's 3, if you tap on the light enough times, you'll actually consume about 1 or 2% of battery power per, I don't know how many clicks it is, but it goes down fast, much faster than the original game, and that's one problem I had when I took a look at it. That's actually why I haven't played the fan game Five Nights at Freddy's 3. And if there really is anything more to say about the lights, you would think if the place is already lit enough that, I don't know, maybe the lights inside the security room would allow you to see outside. Unfortunately, no. It is too dark out there. I wonder what would happen if Five Nights at Freddy's had a day mode. Oh, that would be very interesting. So now that we've gotten all the primary mechanics of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 out of the way, now it's pretty much time to discuss the murder scenes. When the animatronics take Michael Schmidt and dump him into a Freddy Fazbear suit, probably taking out his organs in the midst of it. How these animatronics are intelligent enough to even do this is oddly enough scary. But there are many ways to lose the game in this title, and it's actually kind of interesting. You have your 4 primary ways. So you've got, when Bonnie and Chica are right at the door and you can't close the door. The second you bring up the camera, if you can't do the camera trick, they will pretty much give you the jump scare. They'll pretty much yell at you. Bonnie, the way he looks, it looks as if, animated teeth. Kind of like those wind-up teeth that just open and close and walk around on the floor. That's kind of what Bonnie looks like when he scares you. That's actually how classic Freddy looks like in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Which is, it's interesting for what it's worth. Chica, I don't know if I brought this up already, but it looks as if she's saying, "Pizza!" How to make Five Nights at Freddy's not scary is ridiculous. If you haven't seen that video yet, unless if I'm forgetting something, because I had to re-record this section, feel free to watch that. Really lovely stuff. Then you've also got Foxy running down the West Hall to scare you. Freddy jumping out of nowhere into the room. If the power runs out, you'll probably end up hearing this, the Tornado March from, I think, Carmen? Was it? I forget. I got a bit of lag there, but that track, even though when the power runs out, you'll probably only hear about the first 18 or 19 seconds of it as I just played. However, if you're lucky enough, you can actually get a 61-second rendition of the track, which is actually the full track. And if you're lucky enough to get that, you'll probably survive the night. You definitely will have survived about almost half an hour, if not a full hour, by that point. But if you're at 5 a.m. and you get the 61-second track, chances are you probably survived the stage. If not, then you more than likely will get this sound effect, which is triggered by every animatronic when they attack. Scary stuff indeed. It is presumably a child screaming, but, if I've learned anything from the Mega Drive and Genesis version of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, obviously it would not be the same kid in every animatronic. That wouldn't make sense. In fact, Golden Freddy, if you're able to end up getting him, you basically end up finding him in one of the rooms. I forget exactly which one. It's literally right here. So occasionally if you go into Camera 2B in the first game, which is the security office, I think. No, not security office. What is Cam 2B anyway? Because I actually don't know all the locations. Oh, it's the Western Hall. It's the West Hall corner. If you end up getting this, on rare occasion, mostly in Night 1 and Night 3, very early on in the Night 1 anyway, if you end up getting it, you can see a photo of Golden Freddy. And if you're able to get that, then you pretty much have a few seconds to put the monitor back on, as I mentioned earlier in this audio log. And if you don't get it up in time, and you just, for whatever reason, seem to leave it, just leave them there, showing off photos of the other animatronics, and then it's saying, "It's me," you end up getting this very slowed down version of the scream that is heard when a normal animatronic would hit you, or catch you in the act. And it sounds a little something like this. Now that actually sounds like a bear. Oddly enough, however, for a 15-second audio clip, I would expect something a bit more, dramatic. But here's the most dramatic part of the thing. It crashes the game if you get caught by Golden Freddy. So, if you don't want to crash your game and have to restart, chances are you probably don't want to have to do that. You don't want to leave them on screen for too long. Ugh, how scary can that be? But as I've mentioned before, Golden Freddy he's also known as Fredbear in some cases. He's the original Fredbear, but in some theory, dang, vehicles are very loud outside my house. It's very scary. It's actually snowing at the time of this recording, so that's kind of explanatory. It's the salt trucks just going around, dumping the salt everywhere and making sure that all the snow is gone off the streets. Because we got a good inch or two. But yeah, it is believed that the original Fredbear is a hallucination. Because as far as the game is aware, or as far as we're aware, Golden Freddy is nowhere to be seen in the building at all. not on the cameras, not in the supply room, nowhere. So chances are it's probably just Mike's hallucination and probably seeing things. Either way, it's very interesting to point out. But if there are any other murder scenes, I've got no clue, to be truthful. In fact, I don't even know what Golden Freddy would actually do to the player if they were to actually be murdered. I think Five Nights, I forget which Five Nights showed it off. Maybe it was one of the Gary's Mod videos I've seen. Maybe it was Five Nights at Sonic. Yeah, it was probably Five Nights at Sonic. Five Nights at Sonic basically shows Miles boarding up the doors with some kind of like new machine to pretty much keep the doors held down even when the power runs out. Golden Freddy apparently shows up in front of him, and then you got the sound effect. It's not my best. I'm not in the best of conditions to actually do any voice acting right now, so please forgive me on that. Either way, very scary. Very scary. Is there anything else about the original FNaF that I could talk about? I guess I could talk about the hallucinations themselves. I am actually not too sure about what the hallucinations are in full, but there are three. There are three I can talk about. Well, one I've already talked about, Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy is the third hallucination that you can get. But sometimes there are vision hallucinations where sometimes, even if Golden Freddy's not on screen, you'll get the clips of the different. You'll get the clips of the different animatronics, and then the word "it's me" showing up for whatever reason. Sometimes object hallucinations will also happen too, like in certain areas. Sometimes some of the papers will look different. I think it also happens in Foxy's area too, like in Pirate Cove. If Foxy runs out, sometimes instead of it saying sorry out of order, it'll sometimes say it's me, which more than likely means that Golden Freddy is probably in the area and will probably give you a jump scare if you decide to go to Cam 2B and then get his poster. But there are just so many hallucinations. Either way, interesting. So now it's time to talk about the Five Nights themselves. And it's actually 7 nights. Well, actually, no. It's unlimited nights because once we get to the glitch nights, I'll discuss that. So nights 1 to 5 are your primary story. They're basically, hey, welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. We're going to show you around. We're going to teach you how to work things. If you're having any trouble, just feel free to talk to the phone guy. You actually can't talk to the phone guy. You never could. You can only listen to him. You never can actually talk with him. You basically, again, you're just surviving for about almost 9 minutes in the PC version. 8 minutes and 36 seconds, I think I said. And this applies to both games, both Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2. So, you're going through, you're surviving, you're looking at things, you're making sure none of the animatronics get a hold of you, and then boom, it's over. Obviously, you've got the plot development with the phone guy in the first game, and then the second game is a completely different thing. But then when we come to Night 6, Night 6 is basically just an added challenge. It serves no point to the plot, except you will end up getting another 50 cents if you are playing the first game, but what can you really pay? What can you buy with 50 cents in 1993? Don't answer that question. I know you could get a lot of candy back in 1993 with 50 cents. I know that for a fact. But again, Night 6 is kind of considered a challenge night, but then you have Night 7. And Night 7 is where things really get interesting. Because, for example, Because Night 7 is considered a custom night, you can do whatever you want with it. In the most recent revisions, if you type in 1987, I think you have Freddy at level 1, Bonnie at level 9, Chica at level 8, and Foxy at level 7. Don't take my word for that. I honestly forget exactly what order it is. I think it's Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and then Foxy. Yep, I am correct. It's Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. I got it right here on screen. If you put that in, you end up getting a Golden Freddy jump scare, which is to pretty much get rid of any controversy involving the bite of 1987, which I'm sure will probably be explained in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. There is no jump scare assuming that you do that, the 1987 effect in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, so there really is nothing to explain about when it comes to that. If you set it to all 0, setting the AI difficulty to 0 will not disable the 4 animatronics, but it's more or less like if you want to go into... It's what I call free mode. It's the free mode of the game. If you want to look around, you want to see all the Easter eggs, you want to try to get Golden Freddy, then that's what you can do. You can do that. Oddly enough, though, even though you have the level set to 0, because Foxy can still activate, it probably takes him like a matter of maybe 3 to 6 minutes for him to actually get to the room, which is kind of scary if you think of it. I would actually be kind of shocked if that was the case. Then there's the big one, and this is actually the reason why whenever I end up getting to doing Five Nights at Freddy's for the channel, you see, I will only be doing the 2020, the 420 or Nightmare mode, Night 7. Because Night 7 is intended to be played with maximum difficulty, if not have everything set to 0. And in my case, having everything set to 2020, I cannot do that in real time. I'm sure if I could do it in editing, I probably would, but 2020 mode, or, I'll just say 420 mode. 420 mode it's a decent challenge. And I've gotten used to the way that the pattern works so much that even in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 with 1020 mode, I'm actually rather used to how it works, and I can complete the night rather easily, assuming that I don't mess up the pattern. I've gotten it down so much that if I were to do it live, I'd probably get it in maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours at most, if not 1 hour. But it's for those who are like the hardcore players, the major folks. In fact, I don't even know who will be doing nights 1 through 5 and then night 6 for the channel. Because again, if I'm only doing night 7, then that means I'll have to get 2 other people to do nights 1 to 5 and 6 respectively. But that's a completely other story for another time. But whenever the time is proper, we'll get to the commentary for that. That'll be something interesting to show off. I actually do enjoy that. I enjoy the difficulty that the custom night gives us. And, if you've completed 420 mode in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, or if you've completed 1020 mode in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, then more power to you. More power to you. So with all the information, or at least all the primary information for Five Nights at Freddy's out of the way, I guess we can now trail on to Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And with that mentioned, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a rather interesting title within itself, because it's a prequel. It's a prequel to the first game. Most people thought when you were first playing it was a sequel because, well, Phone Guy's alive. But obviously, when we find out in Night 6 what's going on, you obviously know there's actually... This is Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. And in this place, again, same thing, family-friendly restaurant, kind of like Chuck E. Cheese's. And from here, basically what's going on is, animatronics are still going a bit haywire. However, what confuses me about the new animatronics, aka the toy animatronics, Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Mangle, and perhaps even the marionette, aka the puppet / the Jack-in-the-Box, who pretty much might as well be Slender Man. They're not really all that scary. They don't even look scary. They look more like, traditional cartoon characters, especially Toy Bonnie. Toy Bonnie reminds me of Buster. Yeah, anybody remember Buster Baxter from Arthur? Oh, I love that show. I still watch Arthur, actually. The only reason why I don't like it as much as I did the original series when it was released back in 1996, I think it was, if not 1998, is because they decided to make the animation a bit more sloppy. The artwork it's too bold. It's kind of like modern day renditions of The Simpsons, except the animation took a nosedive. There's a reason why I don't approve of 30 frames per second with Arthur and most other shows. Like, once you start going into that territory, you're really making it difficult for me to actually enjoy the show. But we're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's here, aren't we? Okay, so this time around you're playing as Jeremy Fitzgerald, and obviously we don't really know much about his job except, for some reason he really enjoys working here. However, there was actually one other person that worked there before him, and we don't know who works at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria before Jeremy Fitzgerald, so, there were a few issues going on. In the regards of how Jeremy has to handle things, he actually has it harder than Mike because obviously there's more animatronics, there's more robots to deal with, and also let's not forget he has to do a few other things because he doesn't have any doors. So in the case of Jeremy Fitzgerald, he has to use side lights. There are side lights on either side. He also has a flashlight. The flashlight has the battery, and if the battery runs out, then he won't be able to look through the hallway, which can probably trigger a murder scene from either Foxy or Mangle. In order to avoid other animatronics, aka classic, pretty much all the classic characters, with the exclusion of Foxy, also including Toy Chica, Balloon Boy, who also, in Balloon Boy's case, he summons Foxy if he ends up in a room, and also, let's see, Toy Bonnie and Toy Freddy. Basically, if you have the Freddy Fazbear mask on, it's basically made to have a glitch in the system, and this glitch in the system allows them to think that you are a Freddy Fazbear animatronic. And so, they'll walk away. In some cases, though, this does not happen. And sometimes you will get caught anyway. It all depends on how fast you put the mask on before you... after you let down the monitor. The monitor still works the same. You basically get to look through everything. In order to prevent summoning the marionette to your room or your office, what you have to do is you have to remotely wind up a music box, which actually plays a lovely tune. Let me see if I can get that up. So I have to go to characters. Got to go to, the puppet. Yeah, the wiki calls it the puppet. In other cases, they'll call it the marionette. And, I actually kind of like the mask on the marionette. It's very happy. It's a very happy face. I like it. Very playful, very baby-like. But it's not very baby-like with that jump scare. I don't like it. Get off screen. Get that off screen, please. So the track that plays is My Grandfather's Clock, and to be truthful with you, I've never heard this anywhere else. I'll probably have to look this up at some point, but My Grandfather's Clock sounds beautiful. Have a listen. It's a 15-minute loop, but for what it's worth, I actually enjoyed a little music box tune. But be careful not to let that tune stop. If you let it stop playing for too long, especially in Night 7, you'll end up getting this little mini 3-second loop, I think it is, of Pop Goes the Weasel. And if you get caught, this happens. Or, you know what, I won't let that happen just yet. I'll wait until I talk about the death scenes or the murder scenes in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Either way, as you can tell from the way I'm kind of, going about trying to say everything, even though it's in a very convoluted order. You can tell there's a lot to do in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. It's not as bad as I'm putting it out to be, but it might as well be as bad as I'm putting it out to be. It's not easy one bit, and I assure you, if you have trouble multitasking, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 will kick your anus in many ways than one. I won't lie, 1020 mode made me hand my ooh-la-la to the opponents at all times. Actually, no, I think it's the other way around. I think my ooh-la-la was handed to me by the computer many times. Then again, I was playing in widescreen mode. Widescreen mode is definitely not, it's not the way to go. If you're going to play Five Nights at Freddy's, play in at least the square box or 4:3 ratio. Trust me, you will save yourself a lot. Much more bearable. Far more bearable than you could imagine. But there is some actual major plot going on. Once you get to night 6, you end up finding out that Fredbear / Golden Freddy, he was apparently a spare suit that was from the old Fredbear's diner. And what ended up happening was, I guess, somebody used it. It is being presumed that the phone guy used it and is pretty much just letting you know now none of the animatronics or even the marionette are working right. They'll be all heavily aggressive now. And so at the end of night 6, Jeremy Fitzgerald is then switched by Fritz. He's changed by Fritz for night 7 because Jeremy's now working a day shift, and I guess that's when the Bite of 87 happens. Hence the reason why maybe 1020 mode is a possibility. But, in the case of how Golden Freddy works this time around, you obviously can't use the same method that you originally used. So, bringing up the monitor will still give you the jump scare. What you have to do this time around is that instead you have to put on the Freddy Fazbear mask, or helmet, or hat, or whatever the duck it's supposed to be. It has a hat on it. But if you end up getting caught, obviously you know the drill. It's game over. You'll probably get one of the mini-games. Oh, right, the mini-games. You end up having 4 mini-games in this title. I don't really find a major significance to the death mini-games. They don't serve much of a purpose except to explain, I guess, some of the backstory about what's going on in the title, or at least what's going on in the plot. Because we have a few of these. You have Save Them. And what Save Them is, you control Freddy, and you're apparently following the puppet / marionette. And for whatever reason, Freddy doesn't have his hat and bow tie. As you're walking about, and for whatever reason, he's holding his microphone. You basically have to walk. You can explore the place, but at the same time, you also have to end up constantly following the marionette, and after a certain point, it'll just end. Save Them, I guess, was a way to describe maybe something was happening to the kids, and this was basically Freddy's way of trying to go out of his way to find out what was going on. It's the only minigame that doesn't have a jump scare, though. The other ones have different jump scares. One gives you Golden Freddy, the other gives you the marionette, and one of them gives you Foxy. The first one, Give Gifts, Give Life, which gives you a Golden Freddy jump scare. So you play as the marionette, and you have to roam about giving gifts to, I presume, figures that look like physically retired children. And when I say that, you obviously know I mean the term dead. I don't like using dead for protagonists. It doesn't make sense. I'll use dead for antagonists. For protagonists, no. Protagonists never die. They could get put into retirement and then somehow get brought back to life, but they never actually die. Enemies and antagonists die. Let's keep that in mind. So after that, so it starts off with giving gifts. So it has the marionette going around giving gifts to the physically retired children, and then after that, the screen changes, and then it says "Give life," and then the marionette ends up bringing to life the original 4 animatronics. So throughout that sequence, the words "help them" apparently shows up. And completing the minigame, it gives you Golden Freddy's jump scare. However, oddly enough, this minigame does have a score system, and you get 100 points for everything that you do. If you successfully get everything done, you'll get 800 points. And oddly enough, during the Golden Freddy jump scare, sometimes you'll get some ridiculous numbers. And according to the Wikia page, it says here like you can get numbers such as like 3,225, 5,229, 6,762, or 6762, 7226, and 9225. Not sure if those numbers actually have some kind of significance with something maybe involving the plot of FNaF 2 or maybe even FNaF 3. But it's something worth looking out to. Then there's another minigame, and it's apparently involving Freddy after getting his buttons and his hat. His bow tie is still missing, though. So in this one, it's called Take Cake to the Children. And basically what you do here is you have to give cake to 6 kids. And if you're playing the mobile version, then you probably know you have to give cake to 2 kids. So, each child will turn green once you give them cake. Neglecting them will turn them like a bright red, and by a certain point, completely red. However, in the meanwhile, there's a child standing outside. And so, as Freddy's serving cake to all 6 of the kids, then there's this purple car, presumably a limo, pulling up outside, and then a purple person comes out. Now, it's been theorized in rumors that the purple guy is probably the phone guy, but how can it even be? That doesn't make any sense. But who knows? We'll probably find out in FNaF 3 anyway. So then the purple guy apparently, presumably murders the kid who was actually crying and then appeared to stop crying and then immediately cried even harder while it was happening. The sad child, however, will then turn gray when murdered, pretty much. All the while, letters are called out saying the word "save him." And "save him," I have no idea who him is or who he is. So there really isn't much going for the information here, but it might be described probably in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, as I'm saying before. There really isn't any kind of hint as to what's going on here, except for the fact that, we're trying to give cake to the children, and then we notice this kid getting murdered outside. What the duck is going on here? Is Skeletor trying to crush He-Man like he is on the commercial right now? No, literally, it's on TV right now. Because, whenever I do these commentaries, I like to have my TV on, and for whatever reason, Skeletor is promoting Honda while trying to find a way to crush He-Man. And knocking the 8-ball off of the Honda Accord LX sedan, for whatever reason. Don't ask me why. Might as well finish up this particular minigame by mentioning, if Freddy is able to successfully give all 6 or 2 children cake all at the same time, the player will be unable to move, and he'll be forced to watch the children all turn red. So, once all the children turn red, then the marionette will give the jump scare to the player, thus ending the minigame and bringing you back to the main menu. The last one is the Foxy minigame, and basically as Foxy, all you have to do is you go down and to the right. Down and to the right. You just keep doing that. You do that the total of 3 times. The first 2 times, you get to see the kids happy. There are 5 children. There are 5 children who appear to be happy, and apparently there's one on the bottom, a little offset, which means that due to the black bars on screen, it'll look sad. But that's common with most Atari-like games, so that's forgivable. However, on the 3rd playthrough, before I do that, on the mobile version there are only 3 kids, with the bottom one still looking sad because of the black bars. But when you get to the third run of Foxy doing the L run, apparently the purple man who had murdered a crying child and take cake to the children is apparently seen standing in the corner, smiling for whatever reason. So when Foxy approaches the children, they all seem murdered, which is rather scary. That's scary. So how did the purple man murder all these kids? It's kind of like the Woman in Black. Actually, speaking of which, I actually saw the 1989 and 2012 renditions of The Woman in Black back-to-back. Not a bad watch. If you haven't watched The Woman in Black, or even the sequel, The Woman in Black 2, which is now in theaters, please watch it. Very worthwhile. Very worthwhile. There aren't a lot of jump scares or anything, but very well worth the time, very worth the mystery. And hey, you get to learn about what happened to the kids. The kids! Think of the children! The children must live! And that's the end of the mini-games. To be truthful with you, I've actually never gotten any of the mini-games in any of my Night 7 2020 1020 mode playthroughs. I've never actually done that. Actually, speaking of which, let's talk about Night 7 and Five Nights at Freddy's 2. But before I do, as I'm going to that, might as well talk about the minigames. Yeah, I've never actually gotten the minigames throughout my playthroughs. And to be truthful with you, if it does involve some sort of plot development that might be mentioned in FNaF 3, I'd be glad to see where this goes. I am kind of curious about who the purple man is. Who knows, the purple man might even be another suit. I'd be very shocked. However, now to talk about the way that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 works, you can end up getting, you can get some different things here. In order to get the third star of the game, you have to play traditional 2020 mode, or 420 mode, involving level 20 AI for the original 4 animatronics, which is practically easy. If you know what you're doing with the classic animatronics, you've got nothing to worry about. Unfortunately, however, the marionette actually does have some sort of horrible, and I stress, horrible, kind of lost my train of thought there. Right. In Night 7, regardless of what difficulty you select, the marionette actually doesn't have any difficulty setting. So regardless, the marionette will always give you a hard time. You have to be strictly upon winding up that music box. Toy box. Yeah, since when is there a toy box that you can wind up? Oh, right, Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box is considered a toy. How is it even considered a toy? It's just a little thing with cloth and a spring on a box. Then again, at least it's not as bad as Saturday Night Live's Dick Cheney in a box. That was funny. That was too funny. I think it was for a Christmas episode, now that I think of it. Yeah, Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake. Lovely time. Lovely time. I actually enjoyed that. That was fun. So back to this. Again, you've got many things here, and again, in order to get certain rewards, like for example, the third star, you have to beat 420 mode in FNaF 2, which basically has the original animatronics set to 20. The next one is new and shiny. Basically, everything is set to level 10, or at least Balloon Boy, Toy Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Mangle, or Toy Foxy, as some people like to call him. Sorry. You successfully do that, you end up getting Toy Bonnie as a little doll on your office desk. Double Trouble, which only allows you to duke it out with Classic Bonnie and Toy Bonnie at level 20. Completing that ends up giving you a Classic Bonnie toy on your office desk. Foxy is strictly just Foxy and Mangle. Oddly enough, I would have expected Balloon Boy to be there, but sadly, no. That never became a thing. Completing that gives you the traditional Foxy doll on your office desk. Ladies Night Out, which apparently gives you classic Chica, modern Chica, and Mangle. I'm actually glad that they didn't put in regular Foxy, because original Foxy is a male. You end up getting a original Foxy doll with that, and oddly enough, she's actually holding a cupcake. But oddly enough, you can also get a regular cupcake. I'll get to that eventually. Then the next one is Freddy Circus. Freddy Circus has classic Freddy at level 20, Foxy at level 10, Balloon Boy at level 10, Toy Freddy at level 20, and Golden Freddy at level 10, which means he will show up more often, kind of as much as he shows up in Night 6. Successfully complete that, they get a classic Freddy doll. And then the rest, everybody will be set to a specific level. The Cupcake Challenge, everybody's set to level 5. Fazbear Fever, everybody's set to level 10, so just as much difficulty as Night 6 was probably for you. And then there's Golden Freddy mode, or as I like to call 1020 mode, which I am actually kind of glad that I mastered it's FNaF's strategy, or else I probably wouldn't know how to beat 1020 mode. At the time of this recording, I can't really deal with 1020 mode as good as I probably can. But it's a decent challenge for what it's worth, and, once we get to actually doing the commentary for Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I will show off my skills of being able to take on 1020 mode. Very well worth the time, very well worth the difficulty. Couldn't say anything better about it. But back to what you can actually earn. The Cupcake Challenge, you obviously get a cupcake, and it's much bigger than the cupcake that you would normally get if you're playing as, it's bigger than the normal cupcake that you would get from the Chica doll, for whatever reason. Why is the cupcake in Chica's hand anyway? Because didn't classic Chica not have a cupcake? Who knows? This rendition of Chica might, for whatever reason, might probably be based on the modern one, so who knows? I honestly can't tell the gift that you get when you obtain, it's a lone microphone when you do Fazbear Fever. That's why they call it Fazbear Fever. Yeah, you add it onto his doll, because he doesn't appear to have his microphone on him, if you take a look at the official sprite. And obviously if you complete 1020 mode, you get Golden Freddy as a doll. Either way, though, very interesting for what it's worth. Oh, Fritz Smith, that's the name of the guy that you play as in Night 7. It just feels bad that he ends up getting fired after the end of Night 7, because, yeah, apparently tampering with the animatronics is a bad thing. Apparently it's not allowed. Then why would you even grant us the ability to do it in the first place? Why would you? If I had to say that, again, the fear effect in... Fear effect. I actually have to... I'll probably play that game at some point. Thanks, Clement, for actually showing that off. But yeah, the effect of fear that is implemented in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is not as bad as the first one, assuming you came into this game after the first, or maybe even Five Nights at Freddy's 3 after that's released. Would I have to say that the jump scare sound is much scarier? To be truthful, I find this to be much more scarier than a child screaming. Can we get that sound up? It actually sounds like an android going haywire and, I don't know, losing its mind. I mean, again, can we please replay that? Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like an android going haywire and then, I don't know, maybe losing its mind while something ridiculous is going on elsewhere. But the jump scares, you can actually kind of get used to them, but the way that they happen, because they happen so quickly when you're playing the game by regular means, obviously when you're first playing it, you'll get you'll cringe. You'll probably scream, you'll probably lose your mind a little. To be truthful with you, I would say the worst jump scare I probably had out of this was probably Golden Freddy. Because I wasn't really scared much by any of the classics, except for probably classic Chica. Ugh, those extra layers of teeth. And probably the other one might have been, did I already say Golden Freddy? But out of the new animatronics, none of them really scared me except for probably Mangle. Then again, can't we all be scared by Mangle? I mean, heck, if I had to be messed around like a jigsaw puzzle every day, just being able to be reconstructed at every single time, hanging up from the tops of ceilings and then lunging my head at the enemy, I think I would probably be scared of myself too. But it's nothing too bad. The game is not as scary as the first, assuming you came in from playing FNaF 1. But it's enjoyable to play regardless. I enjoy it for what it's worth. And again, because it still shares the Night Trap feel, I can't really say too much about it. Because it brings back what was bad over 20 years ago. Over 22 years ago, actually, because, again, Night Trap came out back in either 1992 or 1993. I've got to admit, Scott did a really good job with the way that this game works. So pretty much with that mentioned, I guess I could probably end off with the talk about Five Nights at Freddy's 3. So at this point, I'm obviously talking about this for maybe about 30, 40 or so minutes. Who knows? When I edit this up, I'm really going to feel bad if it's too much time. Sorry for taking up too much of your time, but hey, it's an obligatory topic, and I thought I might as well explain to you how the game works, what's the plot, who are the animatronics, what's going on, what are the minigames about, what's everything going on, what's Five Nights at Freddy's doing for you anyway. And, as we come into Five Nights at Freddy's 3, do I want to go back to playing the Night Trap format of gameplay again? Chances are, no. Because, you see, there was actually a fan-made, I don't even know how to put it, but there's this one trailer for a pseudo Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and it's a place called Freddy's Mall. And in Freddy's Mall, you end up being, you basically walking around with like an iPod Touch and a camera, or maybe some kind of a generic phone with a camera, and you're walking around with a flashlight. It's kind of like Silent Hill. And what you're doing here is you're basically, roaming about trying to avoid getting caught by the animatronics. We don't know if all the animatronics from 1 and 2 will be in it, or if there will be ones from 1, 2, and 3, or maybe just an entire new set of animatronics along with the old generation, the toy generation, and then the modern generation. I don't know. I can't tell you. There really is nothing that's explaining how the game is going to be. We don't know what will be going on. Again, this is literally hours after Scott Cawthon had announced that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is officially in development as of January 2, sometime at night. However, if Scott is gonna stick with the traditional method of gameplay, then chances are things will have to be done right. He'll have to do it in a way in which is not too difficult, and one that is not, well, how else can I put it? One that's not repetitive, one that's not simple, and one that's not overly complex that newcomers would probably not be able to understand what's going on. Either way that he does it, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 will more than likely be a lovely addition into the franchise. I will be more than ready for it. I hope you'll be more than ready for it. And if there's anything else going on, I'll probably talk about it somewhere. If not here, I'll talk it at some point. But there is one more thing I'd like to show off before leaving. At least this episode, anyway. Because there's an audio file that I like to play sometimes. And it's only because Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2 allow you to do this. When you're in the office, when you're going around, you can actually click on Freddy's nose. And when you click on Freddy's nose, I hope this is the sound effect. I hope I got the right sound. I don't want to have to search through the wiki page for more on this. But if I have chosen correctly, you will get this sound. Yep. I miss using those. That sound effect, I think, comes from one of those. It's either from a kazoo or maybe one of those party blowers that you would normally use at like a party, at like a birthday party or maybe New Year's Eve. But yeah, that gets me in the mood for actually playing. In fact, if you're playing 420 mode or even 1020 mode in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 or 2, best recommendation is to use that sound effect. You basically click on Freddy's nose twice, then start off the defensive strategy of going from door to door, using the light whenever you have to, and then going under the camera and winding up the music box, assuming you're playing 2. Either way, thought I'd end off on that. So, you guys might be wondering, what will be next for us after this little talk about Five Nights at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3? Who knows, there might be something along the way. I probably might be finishing up my backlog, and don't get me wrong, I will be dealing with my backlog. That is a guarantee. But for now, I think I'll call it a night. I'll edit this up and make sure it's up by the end of January 4. But other than that, I hope that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 will be a good one. I don't know when it'll come out, probably in a matter of months from now, probably by the end of the year. I haven't a ducking clue getting it. I know it's coming soon. I know you guys are amped for it. I know I'm amped for it. How many times have I said that? Man, I'm getting redundant at the end of the video. But hey, who cares? Five Nights at Freddy's. Again, all that I hope, however, is that we get to hear this. Never gets old. And if there are any other games involving the Five Nights franchise that you want to touch, maybe, I don't know, maybe one of the Flash games, maybe the mobile versions, maybe that RPG Maker 2000 rendition of Five Nights at Duck Boys. It's actually Duck Boys with an F. You know what I mean. I refuse to swear. But if you decide to play any of those, you'll probably get a kick out of it. You'll definitely get a kick out of the original games too. Play some of the fan games, Five Nights at Treasure Island, the Gary's Mod, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2 maps. Anything to support Scott's work. I know he would enjoy it, and I know I would enjoy it if I saw you playing. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it too. So with that said, I'm just going to end off here. I've been talking too much. Yeah, me saying I talk too much and it's a commentary. You know something's up. Or something's gone down. Who knows? Either way, I'm Roya, and I shall see you for whenever I decide to get onto my backlog, which will probably be in a matter of days. Who knows? Let's end off with that sound effect again. I love it. Oh, okay, this is kind of a bit of a post-editing session piece of recording here. I completely forgot to talk about Night 8. Okay, Night 8, I don't know if it's in FNaF 1, but I know it's in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Basically, what you would have to do is you have to quickly scroll the mouse very fast across New Game, Continue, and Custom Night. Do it quickly enough, the code will somehow notice that you're going a bit too fast and it's reading numbers that it's not supposed to be able to read. If you're able to access Night 8 and later, basically all it'll give you is just Freddy and Foxy. In those glitched nights, you cannot access the camera because it'll glitch up and Foxy will get you in about 4 to 5 minutes. However, just keep your flashlight active and more than likely by the time that the game is over, or at least by the time that you reach the end of Night 8 or later, you'll get that lovely 6 a.m. screen. Oddly enough, though, you will go to the next night in the continue mode, but unfortunately, there is no like ending or extra cutscene or anything. It just stays hard locked at the 6 p.m. screen, so that means you have to restart your game. The game isn't crashed or anything. It's still running. It's still functioning normally. It's just that you have to restart. At least your data will be saved, but still. Just thought I'd bring that up, even though we're at, like, the end of the video anyway. Either way, now we're at the very end. Oh. Yeah, I can't do the, I can't do that party no sound effect. It doesn't really make any sense to me. I don't know why either. Either way, have a good night.